Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. I hope you've had a really busy, exciting and fruitful sort of week since the last 7 days since we were able to catch up. I know it's always sort of seems to be fairly hectic, or life seems to be that way in general recently, particularly since we've, entered into these COVID times. And I know that makes it difficult for some people to be able to wrap their head around why are we still in this predicament and things just still seem to be sort of abnormal. And I suppose, that's one way of looking at it. And I don't know whether we'll ever go back to, quote, what was normal pre-pandemic. We can only hope that we do. But the thing that I suppose jumps out at me the most during this most uncomfortable, difficult, challenging time is that we have learnt so much about ourselves as an individual and as a person. So from that point of view, even if the world spun backwards back to, pre-COVID times, early 2020, we wouldn't be the same people. So therefore, we may not necessarily feel as comfortable in that era of life as we once did. So that's why they call it evolution, and we do continue to change and grow, and sometimes for the better and sometimes not for the better, that we do to continue to grow and evolve. And I think that's the important part that we all need to take out of this, that we have all grown, we all have evolved. Some things we've learned about ourselves we weren't too impressed with, and other things we've really excelled in. And it's been a time of being able to reset our values and what's important to us. And I know from many people that I work with from around the world, the most important thing that's come out of this, besides, the uncertainty, is the fact that they've really been able to reestablish that family, the love of family, your friends, and being safe and well is the most important thing in the world. Money isn't as important, or having the bigger house or the bigger car or going on holidays overseas is not the number one goal anymore. It's about being able to spend time with loved ones and everyone to be happy, healthy and secure. And I think that's the shift that maybe if there's a lesson to come out of what we've all been experiencing around the world is we all had to reset our personal values at what was important to us. Look, I'm not saying money's not important. Money makes the world go round. We all have to have it to live in this society. But what I'm saying, it hasn't gone to the top of the list like it once was. And many, many people now are looking at alternatives and, moving to new locations or looking at putting the family first. And for a lot of people, it's, the new norm is working from home, working in a home setting where they realise how much valuable things that they were missing out on before by not spending as much time with their loved ones or their children or being able to get involved in their activities. And it's been sort of like, wow, is this what I've been missing all these years? And it's sort of like they're looking at that as being their new normal and very grateful in a sense that this has happened because they wouldn't have looked in that direction prior to the pandemic. So there's always positives to come out of a negative. So that leads me on to the Simply Tarot card of the week, which this week is the Happy Home. Now, for many people, happy home means many, many different things. It doesn't always mean the neatest and the tidiest house on the block. It just means that there's, some radiating energy there of happiness. And hopefully, if you've got small children still living at home, that there's a lot of noise and laughter and playing chases and things like that fill the home with laughter. And that's what makes a happy home, in my opinion, is being able to sort of feel happy and secure in your home. Now, for some people, that may mean possibly moving to a country setting or something where they've got a little bit more space around them, or just basically feeling that their home is their castle, that it's a place of refuge. It's somewhere where you can go to, where you do feel secure, you do feel you can shut the world out and all its madness. And I think that's the really important message at this time, is that wherever we live, whether it's a small apartment or a unit or a motel room or the biggest, spread on a country estate, we all have to feel secure and happy in our little home, our castle, our way of being able to shut the world out and all its madness and just take a breath, just to be able to sort of reset, recalibrate, take a breath and sort of exhale and say, wow, I'm home, I'm safe, I'm secure. Now we'll deal with the next lot of problems or issues that we've got to contend with for the next week, the next month. We'll deal with work and everything now. So I think that's an important thing, that no matter where you are this week, I want you to be thankful for your home, your refuge, your piece of sanctuary that you can escape to. So we're going to head on to the astrology section of the week. Now, look, I'm really pleased and excited to say the sun's moved into Leo, and it's always a refreshing change to me when the sun moves into a fire sign. I suppose because I'm a fire sign and I enjoy that sort of more uplifting, positive sort of, motivating sort of energy. But I don't know whether I'm alone with saying that this year, but for a number of people that have been inboxing me over the last couple of weeks, everybody's sort of asking me, Amanda, why do I sort of feel like I'm not coping with my emotions? And I think this year with the sun being in Cancer and asking us to really dig deep and look at our emotional selves and look at, spending a lot more time at home for some people and having to confront those sort of things, and really for the first time stopping and allowing their emotional side of themselves to catch up with things that we'd always put in the I'll deal with that tomorrow basket, that, on an emotional front, and we never had the time to stop and deal with it. All of a sudden, we were confronted with that, whether we wanted to or not. These emotions came to the surface, they bubbled up, they spilt over, and all of a sudden we had to deal with things that we couldn't understand, why we couldn't stop crying, or why we felt sad, or why were we not able to focus on the things that we needed to focus on. And I think that was really important, because I think as part of the changes that we've all been evolving with during this pandemic was we had to allow ourselves time to come to terms with our emotions, to come to terms with the emotional changes that we had gone through and things that we hadn't had the time to be able to deal with in previous years. Now all had to come to this bubble to the surface, and we had to own them, work through them, discard them, do whatever we had to do with them to be able to sort of step forward and sort of step out onto the centre stage now and say, look, I'm ready to take the world on now. I feel refreshed. I'm ready on every level to sort of strut my stuff and sort of say, okay, let's get on with it. I'm roll my sleeves up and I'm ready to get back to work, or ready to get back into the action of life. And that's what I feel that the Cancerian time was this year. So now we're heading into we're actually into the Leo time. We're starting to feel a little bit more revitalized. For some people, that'll be about making some major changes in their lives. For some people, it might be, well, look, I've sat in this job long enough. We've been through the pandemic. The pandemic's not ending next week. So I've got to start now reorganizing or looking at what my future looks like moving forward. So some people will be wanting to get out there and start their stuff on the world stage and start looking for another job. For other people, it may just be about having a newfound confidence in themselves, that they're ready to tackle the world. They feel refreshed and revitalized. For our Northern Hemisphere family, it's been a time of being, having a few less restrictions, that you can get out there and enjoy the outdoors and participate in life again. And it's sort of like, wow, I want to get out there and party. I want to really sort of enjoy my summer. And nobody can blame you for that. And it's sort of like, almost like teenagers being let out of high school, sort of, wanting to do something frivolous or silly just because you can. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we have to honour these sort of emotions and allow ourselves to be human and say, we are emotional creatures, and we do make up things as we go along sometimes, and other times we're very determined and have a plan that we're following to the letter. But nothing is necessarily right or wrong. It's what's right for you at this point in time. So, if you want to get out there and let your hair down and do something a little bit foolish or frivolous, well, that's okay. You're allowed to do that. You've earned that right. So don't sort of waste this Leo period, because it is a time of really sort of re-energizing ourselves and doing something that's going to put a smile on our face. And as I said, not everybody will be changing their job. For some people, it'll just be, gee, I just want to go out there and have a nice day, and not watch the clock, or, break a rule in some way where I'm usually so regimented and everything's down to the nth degree. I'm just going to throw that, out the window today and just be. And that's okay too. So whatever you do during this Leo period, make sure that you enjoy it. Do it in a flamboyant, striking sort of way, and look at the world being your stage, even if you are a shy, introverted person, and for you to be sort of out out there is putting on a bright coloured outfit, well, so be it. It's okay. We can all go out there and strut our stuff in some way. We also have the planet Mercury, the planet of communication, is not retrograde or anything like that at the moment, but he is sitting in Cancer. So I want to speak to you about this because sometimes when we've got a really personal planet like the planet of communication sitting in a water sign, and particularly Cancer, he's really sort of trying to get in touch with his emotions, which I've been talking about with the sun being there. But it's sort of like putting the finishing touches to things. All the emotions that percolated their way through to the surface have now got to be compartmentalized, sort of, so some things we'll discard, some things we'll keep, and some things we'll put into the basket of that's next week's job or later in the year's job. So it's a time of sorting out, and it's also a time of sort of sorting out our mind and maybe even sorting out our emotions, that it's like, well, I've given that enough energy, now I can release that and let it go. I'm not going to get any further answers, or I'm not going to get any different conclusions, so why invest any more thinking time into it? And there's a lot of people that have been feeling the same way with that. I know the full moon that we had last weekend was very intense for a lot of people around the world, and a lot of people contacted me and said they couldn't understand why they were so emotional. Well, sometimes full moons do that. Sometimes they're more emotional than others, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean they're in a water sign. It's just the culmination of things and events in our lives bring it to a head for us as individuals, that sometimes we go through a very emotional full moon to be able to release things. And I think that's partly what's sort of been happening. And it's like everybody got to sort of like the end of the plank and said, well, we've got to dive into this. We've got to, clear it up. We've got to, start to try and make headway for the future, which is really important, and it's a good place to be. So the other thing that I want to talk about on today's show is that we have a configuration that's not what I consider a normal one, or one that happens very often, and that's with the Arabian parts, or known as the part of fortune. And no, it's not where we find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's where we find our own personal true part of fortune, the energy, the motivation, the determination, the answers within ourselves. Now, that's actually holding hands or conjunct the moon. Now, we've spoken about many times on the show that the moon only sits in a zodiac sign for approximately 2.5 days. So it's so very fast moving. And that's why it makes this situation that I'm going to talk about very rare and unusual, because you've got the part of fortune conjunct or holding hands the moon. The moon is holding hands or conjunct Neptune, the planet of illusion or delusion, or the planet of creativity, the one that sort of allows us to walk around in a fog for a while we try and sort out what's reality, what's our truth, where are we going, how much are we going to let go of, how much are we going to confront people with, or are we just going to leave it and let the universe take care of it? Now, with Neptune actually still retrograde at the moment, it doesn't weaken the power of Neptune. What it's saying is Neptune's giving us an extra layer or an extra opportunity to spend a little bit more time there and say, okay, I need to sort this out in my own way. We can stay in the Neptunian fog for another week or another month, because we've got the luxury of time to get this right. Now, with all of this sitting in Pisces, Pisces, in my opinion, has the power of the whole 12 zodiac signs all rolled into one. A lot of people sort of look at it as being very watery and sort of mainly in the head stuff. And yes, it can be all of that. But I also look at it as the power of being the final sign of the zodiac of the previous 11 zodiac signs. So we have a wealth of knowledge and power that we can dive into the well and pull out at any time. So that's why I think this particular transit is particularly special, is that we've got this opportunity to look at what's going to bring us our greatest part of fortune for us each individually as an individual person. It's allowing us to work through the emotions that are connected to it, or the emotions that maybe we decided to ignore or avoid or weren't prepared to bring to the table. And it's bought us a little bit of time to be able to find our way out of the fog and find the way that's best forward for each and every one of us. So I think it's a very powerful conjunction. Don't waste it. Allow yourself to sort of do a little bit of daydreaming or staring out the window if that's what's needed, because there's some pretty major answers that are going to come now that wouldn't come any other time in your life. So for the next 48 hours, make sure you have some way of, jotting it down or recording it or something when you have these aha or these brainwave moments, the light bulb moments, as I like to call them, because you may not ever get that same insight again. So we're going to talk with Barbara in Albany in New York. Are you there, Barbara?
I am here.
Do you have a question I can work with, please, Barbara?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much. I have a few things going on, but one would be my health. Another would be I'm starting a new job. So whatever comes.
Okay. So with the house, are you sort of looking to sell it or make some changes with the house?
I've been dealing with an illness, and I feel like I'm coming on the tail end of it, and just wanted to see if you had any insight on that.
Okay, but how does that tie in with the house? Was it because of the illness that you thought you needed to make changes?
I'm not 100% where I was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The reason I asked whether you were thinking of selling or making changes to the house, because that was the first thing that they showed me when you mentioned the house. It was like there was question marks, unresolved decisions there that need to be sort of not necessarily solved this week, but sort of we're heading towards pulling all of that together and sort of making what I would look at as like a final decision on what the step is around the house, whether we put it on the market, whether it's time to move or is it time to make some changes. I feel those choices, those decisions, those answers will come between now and the end of the year. It's not like we've got to sit down and make the decision today. It's just allow yourself to be open to, you may change your mind a number of times before you make that final, that's exactly what I need to do. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned illness. Now, I don't know that we've completely gotten to the bottom of that yet. I'm not saying that you're back at the beginning. I want to be very clear on that. But there still seems to be some residue parts or unanswered parts to what caused the illness or where we go from here with it. Is that how you're feeling?
Yes, I've been trying to kind of figure it out. Yes.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying you won't get the answers, but what they were showing me with that is that we've got to sort of, and I don't mean this to sound patronising in any way, but it was like, let's let go of that for a while. Like, there's nothing more that's going to come in when your mind is so full. It's sort of like we've got to push that to one side and not make the illness the centre stage at the moment. What we've got to make is the centre stage of you, Barbara, and focusing on taking on board the new job. What's that going to entail? And of course, there's going to be some excitement and also some hesitation there, and you wouldn't be human if you didn't have a gamut of emotions attached to that. So it's like, let's shift our focus onto that. And then by doing that, while we're focusing on that, we may just get some of those light bulb moments that I've been talking about with some different answers or some different ways of maybe looking at the illness that you've had. They're not showing me, a label of what it is. What they're showing me is it's not going to take your life. It's not necessarily something as simple as the common cold and it's going to be over next week, but there's certainly going to be definite improvement, and to a point where you sort of think to yourself, well, that's okay. If that's as good as it gets, I can live with that. I can start to rebuild my life around that, knowing what my limitations are and what I can expect of myself. And if I get anything above that, well, that's a bonus. And that's a good place to be. I don't know that there's any one particular answer that gives you those final answers to this. Do you know what I mean? It's a series of little things that give you the final completion. So I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think you've really got to just enjoy where your life is taking you now, Barbara. It's been a time there of sort of almost like walking around in the dark trying to find the light switch to get some light on the situation. Well, you don't need to feel like that anymore. You mightn't have, full sunlight in the room, but you've certainly got a lot more openings or light than what you had even back in March. So, things are certainly moving in the right direction. And sometimes as humans, we get a little bit impatient, don't we? We want it all yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
you're
but
right.
I know that you're on the right track, and you just got to start doing what feels right to you. If, you get up and somebody asks you to go to something or you need to do something, listen to what your gut tells you. If it doesn't feel comfortable, then start asking the questions, well, why am I not feeling comfortable? Is it just fear, or fear of, the unknown or the uncertainty? Or is there really something gnawing at my tummy, that I need to explore this a little bit better? And if you do that, I feel then you'll start to sort of feel a lot more confident in your own choices, your own decisions, and moving forward in a strange sort of way. That's going to help rebalance the health, but yet it's not. Your health situation to me wasn't necessarily emotionally driven. There was a real physical problem. But it's interesting how this is going to help with the healing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Amanda.
You're very, very welcome, Barbara. That's where we're going to have to leave it, sweetie. We've got to talk with Courtney in Wichita Falls in Texas. Are you there, Courtney?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sweetie. Do you have a question I can work with, Courtney?
I'm really bad at that part. Is there any way we could do like a general? I don't know exactly what to ask. I just kind of could use the insight and maybe see if you can connect with me and spirit somehow.
Okay. Look, people usually phone into the show because they've got something that's troubling them. It might be a love question. It might be a job situation. Should I move the house, or, something like, there's usually a reason why we reach out.
I guess my love, I would like some insight with my love situation, because it kind of plays in just overall for my family's well-being and just the situation going on in my love life. I would appreciate some insight on that, because it's actually pretty serious. So.
All right, Courtney, no problem. The first thing that I was picking up as we were starting to chat was that they were showing me the symbol of, endings, change and transformation. So I can only take from that you've been through a number of sort of fairly major things in your life, particularly, and I'm not just talking about COVID, I'm talking about that plus, that it's almost like, to me, that you feel like, oh, I'd just like 5 minutes peace. Can everybody just go and do their own thing and give me 5 minutes, so that I can regroup, I can relax, I can catch my breath, and then I'll come and help you, or then I'll try and, do whatever you want. And it's like, this is really important, that I think you've got to start scheduling off, even if it is only 5 minutes for you, where you don't talk to anyone, you don't talk on the phone, you don't do anything, but give Courtney 5 minutes. And even if you don't want to do anything in that 5 minutes, that's okay. It's got to be, you've got to start allowing yourself to be able to recharge your own batteries. If you don't do that, then, besides the obvious of lowering your immune system and, being more prevalent to picking up an illness or two, which we don't want to do, you're not allowing yourself to be able to be given the flashes of insight that you need to be able to sort of have the thinking on the right track to help solve some of the things that have been annoying you or troubling you. So it's important on every level. And also, too, I think it's important for people around you to understand that you aren't always the answer. Do you know what I mean? Yes, you're super strong and you try and be everything to everybody, but sometimes you need to just be Courtney, and say, time out, I need 5 minutes. Give me that, please.
Yeah.
And I think by doing that, you're teaching other people then to hang on a minute, really ask the question, is what they're going to come and drop on your lap, is it really that important, or can I sort it out myself? So you're not just giving yourself a little bit of a break, but you're making other people take their own power back. And I think that's important too. It's really interesting when I keep asking about the relationship. What I keep being shown is there's 2 question marks. Now, the only way I can interpret that is we don't have answers to 2 particular areas of the relationship, or 2 things that you're still questioning. It's not saying you're going to walk away from it. It's not saying it's the end of it. It's just saying to me, I don't have enough information to be able to sort of say, well, I'm either on board or I'm not, if I can put it that simplistically, because there isn't enough pieces there for me to look at to formulate an answer or come to a conclusion. Now, what they're showing me is those 2 question marks, and I'm using 2 instead of, there might be another 22 behind it, but it's 2 major ones. You will get the answers by late August or early September. Now, that's not that far. So what I would be suggesting to you, instead of sitting there and being so bogged down in that every single day in your thinking, say to yourself, well, okay, I've done as much as I can do with that. For me to go back and keep looking for an answer, all I'm doing is retreading over the same old information. Nothing new's coming into my mind. I'll put that to one side. And what I'm going to do is go over here and focus on something else. And even if that focusing on something else is the 5-minute timeout for Courtney, that's good. But I do feel that this year is going to still bring about some very powerful changes, and maybe not necessarily even in the way that you could predict. It's sort of like, most of us have a general idea of where our life's going and we adjust it as we go along, or if something doesn't quite work out, we bring in plan B or plan Z. But for you, I want to ask you to remain very flexible, to sort of get up each morning and say, okay, great, today's a brand new day. Let's see what the day brings. Do you know what I mean? Yes, you'll have things you'll have to do, but there might be, just if we can float a little bit, I feel you will get more inspiration. You will get more ideas that will be put into your head. That's what that meant. Oh, I can put that piece in that puzzle over there. And it's like you haven't had to expend a lot of energy on it because you've just allowed yourself to be. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to control or organise everything, you're just letting it flow towards you. So I know that's probably going to be hard for you, Courtney, because you like to have everything organised, don't you?
I'm not a stickler for it, but I just kind of I just want peace. I just want things just to be jive and just kind of go with the flow. I don't have to have anything routine, but it's just nice to have security.
Oh, absolutely. But what they're showing me is that if you are able to let go of that control a little bit and just let things flow, you will get the answers. Things will come together the way you want them to. But sometimes when we hang on to the reins too tight, we actually stop it.
Okay. Well, that is, it's really weird that you said about the two, because it was like you were literally reading my mind whenever I kind of focused in on, just the relationship aspect of the question, and directing that towards you. It made sense because as my ex-husband and an ex-boyfriend both are in my life, and I'm dealing with controversy with both of them at the moment. And it's crazy because I'm just not sure where I'm going to, everything you said was like you were just reading it right off my mind. And, and then, I don't know, I can't explain it. That was just really nifty.
Yeah, but the answers will come from what they showed me, towards the end of next month, the early part of September. Those answers will be there. So don't waste any more or invest any more time on that. Put your energy into something else for the moment. Unfortunately, Courtney, we've come to the end of the show, so I have to leave it there with you. But it's very interesting for the rest of our viewers and around the world that, we all have these little situations like Courtney. So we have to be aware of being able to just sometimes go with the flow, because that's sometimes the best answer. And by doing that, we free up a little bit of space in our mind for new suggestions, new ideas to come in. So I hope you enjoy wherever you are in this world in the next 7 days. And don't forget about your happy home and sort of just being and just enjoying being alive. Until next week, bye for now.